you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from theChrisVossShow.com. There you go. The Shrill Iron Lady sings it. That makes it official. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. As always, we bring you the most smartest people in the world. The CEO, the billionaires, the White House presidential advisors, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the people who write these amazing books with amazing stories that teach you everything you need to know in life. And we bring it to you for 16 years, over 2,000 episodes. And you guys should just be the most smartest people in our audience in the world at this point. Or, halfway there. Anyway, we had an amazing author on the show. He's the author of the newest book that just came out, May 14th, 2024. It's called The Profiteers, How Business Privatizes Profits and Socializes Costs. We have Christopher Marquis on the show with us today, and he, in his new book, it's an exposé of how society pays for corporations' free lunch at the cost of environmental damage, low wages, systematic discrimination, and cheap goods. So we'll be talking to him about his insights there. He is the Sinyi, is that pronounced correctly, professor?
You got it correct. That's great.
There you go. The Sinyi Professor of Chinese Management at the University of Cambridge and author of the latest book. His research examines business sustainability and social entrepreneurship, and he's written 2 prior award-winning books, Better Business, How the B Corp Movement is Remaking Capitalism, and Mao and the Markets, the Communist Roots of Chinese Enterprise. He's passionate about how academic research can help people around the world address some of the biggest crises of our day, including climate change, inequality, and racism. Welcome to the show, Christopher. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much, Chris. Really appreciate you having me on.
Really appreciate you coming on. We really appreciate it. Thanks for coming. I'm having a Monday, I guess. Congratulations on the new book. Giveashit.com. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs?
Sure. It's my name, chrismarquis.com. That's an easy place. I'm also LinkedIn. If you Google me, also you can get my university website too.
There you go. Give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your new book?
Sure. As you described, the thing I really focus on is how a lot of the costs for companies, they don't have to pay, basically. So things like, pollution they put in the air, we pay for that through health issues, people in the community, things like climate change, but that's not priced, so companies don't pay. And I go through and I talk both about how that idea pervades a lot of different sort of sectors and areas, but also, and the reason why I think it's important to sort of have a book to focus on this is that for, 50 plus years, companies have been actually very actively both lobbying and having PR campaigns to actually convince us that they should not have responsibility for that. So part of it is, trying to, identify maybe who should be paying those costs.
Is an example of that like, employees at Walmart or low paying fast food, different joints, and, their employees are having to live off public dole and welfare because they can't make ends meet. Is that an example in your book?
Exactly.
Yeah. And how we're basically supporting those employees and basically supporting those businesses. Right?
Yeah. I mean, people are on, in many cases, food stamps, obviously, no health care. And the public pays for that. The taxpayers in the United States pay for that in this case. And, Walmart gets access to cheaper labor and higher profits.
And makes billions funding Wall Street investors.
Right.
Sounds like capitalism in America isn't to me.
It is. So definitely. It is this is something I don't think we can just sort of blame and shame, be it sort of Walmart or whomever. But I think that, part of what I, hope to do through the book is by really explaining that it's not just about sort of Walmart, but it's actually about bigger systems issues that if people understand that actually, they're paying for a lot of basically corporate profits. And of course, company will say, we should have the freedom to, do whatever, exercise business however we want. Sure, but actually they're impinging on all of our freedom, and we're paying for basically, as a public, their investors to actually, get more profits.
Yeah. I mean, it's, billionaires, they're globalists. They work around the world and live around the world, and they love countries where they can just do whatever the hell they want. And
Of course,
that's what a lot of their battle is, from my understanding, with lobbyists and the Supreme Court, and trying to get business on their side. They've won several different ways to do that. Now you can just buy a politician. You can buy a SCOTUS member. Evidently, you just need a free RV, and you got your own.
Right.
Who knew it was just an RV, man? Evidently, it has to be at least a Winnebago or something.
It's a nice RV, though. It's actually
a really nice RV.
It's actually, I saw Clarence Thomas interviewed once, and he corrected the person. It is actually not. There's some other category that it's like a converted bus, and so there's some other category actually, and I can't remember what it is, but we're not experts. Yes,
I think it's in the Constitution. If it's an RV, fuck democracy. I think that's
right.
Amendment 30. So give us a little bit of history on you.
Sure.
How did you grow up? What influenced you become, in academia and writing books?
Yeah, so I grew up, I get this a lot now. The last 2 years I've been at Cambridge, which is, in the UK. And frequently people are surprised that I'm not British. So I'm American. I just moved to the UK 2 years ago, so British accent hasn't rubbed off on me yet. I grew up in Pittsburgh and spent most of my sort of working life in the northeastern US. And I think, I've mostly worked at business schools. However, I don't know if it was my upbringing or, through my education, just became really interested in understanding how business could actually play a positive role in alleviating our societal and environmental issues. And I must say that really, we highlighted this profiteering part, which is the title of the book, but a lot of the book is really trying to understand how businesses can be more responsible in trying to internalize those costs in ways that both don't end up charging the public, but also so many of the companies I've studied really find this as an amazing fountain for innovation. If you're trying to actually, create new ways of doing business, it actually drives a lot of innovation.
Oh, so does that offset the cost to the public, do you find, in your examples? It's these are very complex things to tabulate pros and cons, but I know certainly anecdotally, companies find, if they're being very creative and innovative in their sustainability work, these are things that in many cases, may lead them to be more efficient, may lead to new products, categories, et cetera. This is something where, human resources, I think, is a big deal too. Mm-hmm. So if a company really stands for something, has values, a lot of the youth nowadays want to really work for companies that have a purpose. And so I do think it's something where actually being responsible and being sustainable, it's a long-term play. There you go. So it's kind of we have to balance and weigh and decide, is the price worth the cost, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah. There's a famous line from Rush that was, we will pay the cost, but we'll pay the price, or something like that.
Is that right? I was a Rush fan when I was growing up. I haven't listened to it, but I don't know that. I don't know that one.
It was off For All the Bones, but it basically played on that premise of, we'll pay the price, but do we really evaluate the cost of what it actually costs us? And I think that's what you've done here.
Sure.
So, what do you suggest in the book that we do with the information when we're analyzing whether companies are, doing more good than evil, or vice versa?
Sure. So I think there's a couple things that can be done. I mean, in many ways, so there's things individuals can do. I mean, I think knowing, having a better way of evaluating what companies are doing the right things versus the wrong things, I think is useful, as consumers. I think also knowing more generally areas where there might be, abuses basically of the broader economic and societal system, I think, is helpful to help policymakers. I think you're seeing this now around carbon emissions and taxing and markets. I think that people are are realizing that, this is something where, business has been getting a free lunch, basically. The sky is basically a free airfill for emissions, creating lots of damage. And that's something where companies are sort of policymakers are starting to get engaged. This is pretty substantially around the world. Plastic is another thing I look at quite a bit in the book. And this is something where, there's increasing action at the state level to try to actually limit that. People and entrepreneurs are working to basically avoid and eliminate plastic because, as you probably know, we've all been convinced that we should be recycling. And of course, we should be recycling, but recycling actually doesn't work, sadly enough. Plastic recycling doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you look at I don't even know how many billions or whatever of tons of plastic have been produced. Historically, less than 10% of that has actually been recycled. There's, all kinds of problems with that process. So the company is actually convincing us that we should be recycling, as an example I give, where companies are really just trying to put the onus on us and actually not thinking consciously about ways that they should be, redesigning their supply chain, redesigning their types of materials, et cetera.
There you go. There was somebody we had on the show years ago, and they called that term, like with the bullshit behind the plastic and the recycling, they called it green something. Do you know the term I'm thinking of?
There's greenwashing.
Greenwashing, that's it.
Greenwashing, actually, yeah. I mean, so I don't know if your listeners and you're interested in some of these interesting terms that exist, but there's a couple of them that I think. So greenwashing is a really useful one. This is where companies are trying to put a green sheen on their activities, make them seem like they're greener than they actually are underlying it. And this actually came about from the hotel industry. You've probably stayed in hotels. We've stayed in hotels, and there's a card that says, we care about the environment. Hang up your towel. Turns out a hotel executive wrote an article, I think it was in the 1980s, when this was starting to catch on. He said, we don't care about the environment. We care about saving money. We don't want to hire the people to be sort of collecting and washing the towels. Actually washing them too much actually creates wear, and then we have to buy new ones. So this is just basically about us saving money.
Wow.
That's one term. I do cover that a bit in the book.
Yeah. McDonald's has been accused of it, Coca-Cola.
Yeah, a lot of greenwashing out there.
What are some of the other terms that you want to familiarize us with?
Yeah, so another one is astroturfing. I don't know if you've heard of astroturfing. So
is that where you twist your knee when you're catching the ball?
Yeah, there's all kinds of football things like turf toe and all these things. I haven't heard of those in this context. But astroturfing actually refers to when companies form grassroots sounding organizations to lobby the government, because the government, will take, wants to hear from NGOs and citizens groups, but frequently actually there's companies behind those. And so, AstroTurf is fake grass. So the idea being that sort of fake grassroots organizations are AstroTurf. That's another one.
There you go. What are some others that you want to share?
Sure. Green hushing. This has been in the news recently. Green hushing.
I'm learning everything today.
Yeah. So this is another one where companies are wanting to, sort of they might put a big target on their back if they talk about green things. So actually, they're less likely to target about. So they're hushing on the green thing.
Oh, they don't brag about it in case anybody starts.
They don't brag.
Deets.
Yeah.
The details.
Exactly.
The deets is the
exactly.
Deets. I don't know.
Yeah.
If I could say that. Whatever.
Maybe 20 years ago.
It sounds like there's a lot. What? How old am I? Anyway, you just aged me.
I'm the same.
Yeah. There you go. So it sounds like there's a lot of games being played with this. I mean, I know Tesla.
Exactly.
Tesla. I mean, for a lot of years, wasn't their core revenue, playing games with carbon credits?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So I forget. It might have been the state of California. I forget. Yeah. So a huge amount of their revenue they were able to was because of producing electric cars. There was some tax benefit where they were able to sell some of the carbon credits. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're just like, wait, are you supposed to be a car company making cars and then shitty things that look like Cybertruck microwaves and.
I just saw one of those for the first time on the road. They're bigger than I thought they would be, actually.
Yeah, they're just as ugly as I thought they would be. I just saw
they are
an hour ago or something.
And where are you located, Chris?
Utah.
Okay, got it.
They have a dealership here, and I always see it when I pass on the freeway. But this one drove right by me.
Oh, got it.
And I was like, "Wow!" So that's what a stainless steel industrial garbage can looks like. I've been pretty critical and giving them a lot of shit because there's like all these design issues and breakdown, and evidently you avoid the warranty if you wash them in a car wash.
Oh, geez. I saw one that was painted, actually. I painted a like a neon green. It was quite the car.
I saw one this morning that was painted like General Lee from the...
Oh, really? The Dukes of Hazzard. Yeah.
They had the O on the side. But evidently one of the problems you have is if you wash it like in a... I don't know if it rains, it would do the same thing, but if you wash it in a car wash, the structure underneath the frame will retain the water in pools, but it's eventually going to start smelling really great, and it'll eat into the car because the water is staying in there. It's not going in. They showed how they take apart and showed how one of the problems they finally got dealt with was the thing had a problem where there was a stainless steel slider or metal slider over the gas pedal. And it just literally, you would just take and slide it down the gas pedal to attach it. The problem was if you pushed it, it would slide upward in some cases, and then it would jam up against the dashboard, and it would stay fully down, which doesn't work well in school crossings. Evidently, they had to recall that. But yeah, it's just been I just every day it's like a whole new interesting thing. So what are some other topics in your book that we want to tease out to people to pick it up?
Sure. So let me say a couple things. We've, a lot of the inspiration for me in doing this, was from actually talking to entrepreneurs who were thinking very thoughtfully about how to actually be responsible. And so I have a lot of, sort of case studies and examples of how companies can be more responsible in these realms. So one example is a company, Grove Collaborative, which makes and sells, home goods, health and beauty type products. They have a pretty good website. They both do their own products and do products of sustainable companies like, 7th Generation, Mrs. Myers, Dr. Bronner's, et cetera. And so actually when inspiration for this book really came to me when I was talking to the CEO there, a guy named Stu Landsberg. And what he said to me was, as a business in this, home goods space, our biggest challenge is plastic. And actually use the term externality. So the subtitle of my book, Privatizing Profit and Socializing Cost, expresses this sort of dry economics term externality. And he says, we're dedicated to actually eliminating these externalities. And why I think this is important is because so much of the responsible business topics today focus on stakeholders, like stakeholder capitalism, stakeholder management. And a lot of times I think that is actually just a more sophisticated style of greenwashing where companies are doing selective positive things for these, employee groups or communities. But actually, if you look at their core of their business, they're not really addressing that. So the thing that, Stu Landsberg, really identified to me, we need to be looking at the core of businesses. And so they set on this journey that created innovation. So they reformulated a bunch of products. So shampoo, I know now, but I didn't know back when I was talking to them. Actually, shampoo doesn't need to be a liquid. Actually, you can have bar shampoos that are, totally. It seems strange, but it works. I've, the last 2 years I've used bar shampoos, and
really?
I think we just, and it doesn't have to be packaged in plastic. So this is an example of sort of an innovation. Wow. They also, created like an internal carbon tax. So they've redesigned their P&Ls and badging around plastic. So this is one example of how a company is using, it's sort of creating this drive for innovation by being responsible for their.
I guess shampoos, they don't require, I'm looking online at these, they don't require like the plastic bottle.
Exactly.
Right? And you can just sell them. It looks like some people sell them on cardboard.
Exactly. And it's obviously, I mean, it's for many reasons. It's actually a much more sustainable alternative.
Yeah,
but we're sort of
in the shower.
Yeah, exactly. And you would think that it wouldn't, like if you've ever used soap, like in your hair, I mean, it doesn't really lather very much, but at least the ones that I've used actually work as effectively as regular shampoo.
I think most men do that already, don't we? Don't they just take the bar of soap? And
Right. Yeah.
We're lazy that way.
I'm sort of guilty of that many times. Yeah, definitely.
I saw a diagram the other day of how men wash, and it's like we wash kind of the middle part, the underarms, and then maybe our hair, and then we just let everything else work its way down. Like anything below the kneecaps never gets washed. You just figure the gravity and stuff takes care of it all. That's what I do. I haven't washed my feet in like 5,000 years, which is probably the green or black. One of those colors, whichever's funnier, people just go with it. But no, I'm really looking at this now online. There's a lot of these shampoo bars.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check them out. I know that estrogenics is a big deal. I don't know if you looked into any of that, but I know a lot of soaps and stuff and detergents have estrogenics.
Sure.
And it's attacking men's testosterone and actually giving women the beginning of their menstruations earlier by years.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me actually. A lot of the level of sort of chemicals and hormone types of in our products is really pretty tremendous. One of the things I do look at is actually sort of hormones and antibiotics in beef supply chains. Actually, this is something that and one of the reasons why I look at that is because that's something that now investors are actually putting a lot of attention on because of some of these spillover costs that occur. Mm-hmm. So you might have heard that there's all the potential issues around antibiotic resistance. Mm-hmm. So because there's so much antibiotics in our world through the food we eat, et cetera, people are becoming much more resistant to antibiotics, so that, if you actually get like a serious cut or, have a serious infection, actually sometimes it takes people a lot longer to heal. Mm-hmm. So this is an example of one of these spillover costs to society that I talk about in the book. And why I think it's an important one is that actually investors are realizing that McDonald's, for instance, buys a lot of meat that uses these processes. But actually, if you think about an investor, other companies in their portfolio, healthcare companies, are actually bearing those sort of spillover costs. And so McDonald's, for instance, investors have started to give them a hard time through shareholder votes and pressuring the board to stop using these sort of hormones, chemicals, antibiotics in their supply chain because of this, problem.
That's unfortunate, because when I order a Big Mac, I'll just rub it on whatever wound I have going on, and it helps. I think it's
a multi-use product. Yeah,
it's part of the secret sauce. I think that helps there. It gives me a rash for a while. I'm not sure what that's about, but just rub it on any wound, folks. Don't do that. The lawyers are going to call me. What about the things that McDonald's and companies are doing, where they're doing the what do they call them? Basically the industrial food. These industrial foodscapes of pig farming, meat farming, and I imagine there's some sort of environmental fallout of that. And
there's huge environmental fallouts, and it's all. I mean, another issue is that these. I mean, it's I've driven past some of these before. I mean, this is you might have. The smell is horrible. Yeah. There's in the air. The sort of feces spray gets in the air, and and people that live in those areas have severe respiratory issues. Mm-hmm. So these are things that actually then disproportionately affect sort of lower income areas, because if those are the people that have much less political power, and if these were ever in any sort of wealthy area, they'd be put out of business in a second, because they obviously the wealthy folks would actually be able to affect change within the government, probably to either have these outlawed or have them moved or whatever. So it's a real sort of race to the bottom in where many of these things get put.
There you go. Yeah, not in my backyard, But poor people they'll
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, So I mean, it's something we need to look at. Like I think I quoted Rush earlier, Neil Peart. We will pay the price, but we won't consider the cost. And this is a really big aspect because there's so much that we do. You look at what I grew up in the era before there was the APA with Jimmy Carter putting that in, and I got to tell you, tires washing up on shores and and rivers on fire. I mean, that was kind of fun, really, when you think about it. And I imagine those are some good examples of where the costs of what companies were getting away with wasn't that good for other people when it came to health and stuff.
Yeah, and I think that back in those days it was a little more obvious, although not always, because you might remember one example of astroturfing is, do you remember the advertisement? It's sort of called the Crying Indian advertisement, I mean this was put out by the Packaging Association. It's the name of the organization is like Keep America Beautiful is the name of the organization, but actually it's about it's by Dow Chemical and various packaging companies, and so they want people to think that it's our responsibility to take care of trash, which certainly we all should. But really, I mean, if we're thinking about it, our responsibility, we're going to put less attention on, on these packaging companies. So that's a case in point of both astroturfing and then also this deflection of responsibility to people, so the companies are not as focused on it.
There you go. People need to read your book. What's a quick tease out to what people can do better? Can they just vote better politicians that are regulate this stuff and not be in the pocket of these big companies?
Certainly, I think, political change is important, but I think also, think about the companies that you buy from. There's, we talked about Growth Collaborative and, Patagonia is another example. There's a lot of companies that are actually responsible, doing the right thing. And I think those are the key, that I'd say that's the key thing, is just be thoughtful in your purchasing. And I mean, as someone who has a teenage daughter, I mean, I know that the allure of Shein and fast fashion is tough to get over, but I think also we need to be thinking about, sort of this not overconsumption, buy quality things, don't buy cheap things. Yeah.
There you go. I'm going to read your book when I've got a dinner date for McDonald's later on. I'll read your book when I'm over there. No, I'm just kidding. I'll read your book. I'm just not going to read it at McDonald's. Plus you can rip the pages off and put them in the burger, and it'll probably taste better. And it's more fiber for you, folks. See what we do? We do health here on the Chris Voss Show. We're making sure you get your fiber consumption. But read the damn book first before you start eating it. So, Christopher, it's been wonderful having you on. Give us your final pitch out to people to pick up the book and where they can find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, sure. So chrismarquis.com. Please be in touch. You can get my email there. You can email me through University of Cambridge. I'm passionate about this issue of companies doing better and love to connect to people who are also engaged in that. So please always feel free to be in touch with me. Would love to talk to you.
There you go. Consider the cost of all that stuff. It's just insane to me, in the world you and I grew up in, we had glass stuff for a lot of things and recycling.
Sure.
But
exactly.
It's just insane to me how, watching people with bottled water, like I first started seeing bottled water, we're like, you guys not have faucets? What the fuck?
I had the same thought. Yeah, exactly.
It's just, and seeing people just walk out of Costco with crates of it, you're just like, wow, there you go.
Yeah.
Fun is fun. Order up the book, folks, wherever fine books are sold. The Profiteers, How Business Privatizes Profits and Socializes Costs, that we all end up paying for usually. May 14th, 2024 is when it came out. And check out Christopher's other books as well. Thanks, Miles, for tuning in. Thanks for Christopher being here. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time. There you go.